Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another polymer clay video at keepsakecrafts.net. Today is week 4 in our 2016 Christmas ornament series. Today we're going to be making this adorable polymer clay gingerbread house that you can hang as an ornament, or you can place it over one of those battery-operated tea lights. So this is a really fun project, and it actually feels very much like making a real gingerbread house, except that it's permanent. You can bring it out again year after year. And much like making a real gingerbread house, the first thing we're going to do is gather together our candy decorations. We're going to make them in polymer clay and pre-bake them. So the first thing I'm going to make are some gumdrops, and I'm going to start with some translucent clay. And I like to use Pardo because it really is translucent. It doesn't yellow like a lot of others. And you don't need much clay. So just cut a little piece and then just go ahead and add a little tiny dab of colored clay. And when you're done, you'll have something like this. I made several different colors. You just pinch off little tiny balls, maybe a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch. Cut them in half. And then stick them cut side down to your work surface. And then take a needle tool, poke it a few times in the middle to kind of get it stuck down. And then just go over the whole thing with the needle tool, roughing up the surface. And when you're done, if it's kind of misshapen, you can take a blade and your fingernail and kind of reshape it back to round. And here's what I ended up with. I made a lot of little gumdrops, and this is what they look like after being baked. The next thing I decided to make was some peppermint candies. And so you just roll sheets of red and white clay, stack them. You want to roll the two of them together through your pasta machine, and then just make a stack and restack them until you have a strip. You just roll that around a core of white clay. And then you can see you've got the appearance of a peppermint candy. You can then reduce that down to whatever sizes you want. Cut off pieces to the thickness that you want. And then I like to just use my finger to just kind of soften that cut edge a little. And then here are a whole bunch of little peppermint candies that I made and baked. And I made a couple different sizes. And the final candy that I'm going to make for my gingerbread house are some candy canes and candy cane sticks. And that's really simple. Again, you start with a log of white clay, roll some thinner snakes of red clay, place 4 around, and then just roll it in to make it round again. And then again, roll this out to reduce it to the size that you want. Give it a twist and shape your candy canes. And here again are some candy canes that I'm going to use to decorate my gingerbread house. Another thing you can pre-bake if you like is some more translucent clay mixed with just a tiny dab of yellow, and this is going to be for windows. And what I did was I rolled this out on the thinnest setting of my pasta machine, and then I put it on a tile and then rolled it even more thinly, as thin as I could get it. Put a piece of paper over this and another tile on top to keep it flat, and pre-baked it. And I'll use this to cut out windows so that when I put my candle inside they will glow. So then the next thing that you will want to do is make the icing snow that you would use to cover the peak and sides of your roof. And you can just do that using the liquid bakeable clay, and you want to put it on a tile. And then just make, for the peaks, you'll need to make a right angle that's maybe just a little bit longer than your roof line. And then you want to bring down your dripping icicles at a 45-degree angle. And you'll need to make 2 of these, one for each end of your house. Don't put the icicles too close together because they kind of blob and run. They don't hold a real defined edge. You can see these up here are kind of mushed. And then for the sides of your roof, you'll just make a straight line and then make your icicles come down at a 90-degree angle to the line. And that's all there is to that. And then pre-bake these. And when they're baked, these will peel right off the tile, and then you can glue them onto your roof. And now it's time to make our actual gingerbread pieces. So what I have here is a color that I think looks good as a gingerbread house. It's a mixture of different browns. And I have rolled this out on a number 3 setting of my pasta machine, about 1.5 millimeters thick. And I'm going to double this up. Doubling the thickest setting on my pasta machine seemed a little bit too much, so doubling a medium thick setting seemed about right. So you just lay these on top of each other, kind of roll it down as you smooth it so that you don't trap any air bubbles in there. Give it a bit of a roll with the rolling pin. And then I have my little templates here. And I cut out 2 of each just so I'd be certain to lay them out so that everything would fit well. And you can easily draw up your own templates. Let's see, this is 2 by 1 1/4 inches. The roof is 2 1/4 by 1 1/2. And then the front and back are sized accordingly. I'll leave those up so you can copy them. But those of you who are my patrons, on the Patreon page, I'll put up a template that you can print out with all of these. So then you just use a blade and cut out your pieces. So now I have all my house pieces cut out, and I have them placed on a tile with a little bit of space around them. And now we can cut out the door and the windows. And what I'm using to do that, although you could certainly do it with a blade, this Sculpey cutter set is terrific. I'm going to use the big rectangle to cut out the door, and then the square to cut out some windows. So these larger pieces are the roof. So now that you have all of your pieces and the cutouts cut out, it's time to texture it to make it look like gingerbread, and we're just going to do that with a toothbrush. You just go over the whole thing, making sure to get all of the edges, to soften them. That's why we wanted a little bit of space between them on the tile. So this just softens those edges and adds a great texture. And I like to make sure and get inside those square cutouts, there's a seam from the cutter. So I make sure and soften that and just go over all of the edges. Okay, so there's my pieces all toothbrush textured, looking far more like cookies. But this next step will really make all the difference. And what you need are a couple of chalk pastels, one in kind of a reddish brown and one in a dark brown. And just use a blade and shave off some of each. You need quite a bit more of the reddish brown than you do the dark brown. Then just take a soft brush and, starting with the red color, just go over all of the edges of your cookies. And if you have any harsh lines, just kind of take your brush and blend them out to make them look a little bit more smooth. And you could see already it's starting to look more like a cookie that's been baked. So once you have as much of the reddish color on as you think looks good, then go ahead and add some of the darker brown, being very sparing with it. Really have it just on the edges, because if you have too much, your cookies are going to look burnt. And that's not a look we want. You don't want the burnt gingerbread houses. But just a little bit on the edges, you can see, really gives it that look that the cookie's been baked. So now, just like with building a real gingerbread house, once your cookies are made and baked and cooled, well, these don't have to be baked quite yet, but it's time for decorating. So in place of the royal icing that we would use in gingerbread houses, I'm going to use this Sculpey liquid bakeable clay in pearl. And just like in a gingerbread house, you can do whatever you want. I think for this roof, I'm just going to do some lattice strips and then put gumdrops at the intersections. You know, it's always my hope to encourage and inspire you in creative pursuits with these videos. So if you've benefited, I hope you'll consider becoming a patron. You can support these tutorials with $1 a month or whatever you can afford. And you can check out my Patreon page for details on the great rewards you'll receive for becoming a patron. So here I have some of my gumdrops. Now the gumdrops are tiny and they can be tricky to place, so I figured out a way to do it. I use my needle tool to poke into a gumdrop. That picks it up. Don't poke too hard. And then just any other tool. I position it where I want, and then mostly where I want, and then use another tool to pop it off the needle tool. And so you just keep going, decorating however you want. You can use the liquid clay to draw lines around the windows. You can take your candy cane stripe and go around windows, doors. I'm going to use the baked candy canes. After my cookies are baked, I will glue these onto the corners. And so you just decorate to your heart's content. Here are all my decorations. That was a lot of fun. I was listening to Christmas music and just putting on the little gumdrops and candy canes and icing. And so now this is ready to go in the oven. Bake it at the manufacturer's recommended temperature. And here are some I decorated and baked earlier. I tried doing the scallops with the liquid clay on here, but just keep in mind the liquid clay does tend to kind of run all over the place and get mushy. It doesn't hold a crisp line. But that's fine. It's, you know, a gingerbread house. And you could see here I had some round windows, and so I trimmed them with the candy cane. So after you've baked these pieces, now is the time before we assemble to put in our windows. And I'm just going to use a pair of scissors to cut this yellow thin sheet of clay. Then use Lisa Pavelka's Polybonder to glue them in place. Oh, that's really cute, huh? So just repeat to add all of your windows. And now, once your windows are all attached, you can start gluing your house shape together. Make sure that you glue the sides to the outside of the front and back. So the rectangular pieces go outside of the pieces with the point. And that's to make sure that it will fit properly over the tea light. You just need to hold these for a few seconds and they're set. And here it is, all glued together. Then you go ahead and glue on the roof in the same way. You may need to hold that a little bit longer, just like in a regular gingerbread house. You may need to hold it, prop it for a little while. So once you have your whole gingerbread house glued together, isn't that cute? I just love it. Then you can take your snow, use scissors again, cut off pieces, and glue it all around the edges. You can add a screw eye to hang it. I will probably put some TLS up here, some of the pearl, and put a candy cane ridgepole and maybe some other candies to hide the ends. We'll see. Just like you're making a regular gingerbread house, you stop when you're done, and there you go. And then because it's open on the bottom, you can just place it right over your little tea light and have the windows glow from within. So I hope you enjoyed this project. I had a lot of fun putting it together. If you're interested in the supplies I use, click on the little eye in the upper right or the link in the description box to go to my blog post. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and take a peek at my Patreon page for how you can get great rewards and help support these tutorials. Happy creating. Bye-bye.